Hi, welcome to Safety Matters. I'm your host, Walt Seigan. As you know, our theme for the program is lifestyle safety. That is safety at work, at home, at play, and at transportation. And as always, we encourage the Family Safety and Health Magazine concept, and we're going to talk today about life care planning, and we have Ron Smolarski with us from Beacon Rehabilitation Services. So if you have any questions, look for his phone number and feel free to call Ron if you need some help. He might have a question that he can answer, and I'm sure if he doesn't, he'll tell you and offer who to go to. Ron Smolarski, welcome to Safety Matters.
Hi, Walt.
We're talking about life care planning, and could you define, if you would, for that, what life care planning is and how it might be different from other concepts that may be out in vogue today?
Well, basically, life care plan is a blueprint for an individual, such as a person who's been catastrophically injured, like a person that's a paraplegic, a closed head injury, maybe a person or a child who's developmentally disabled as a result of the birth, or possibly a older senior citizen, a geriatric person that needs some type of program or programming of all the needs that the persons will be using in the future, and having it all known up front so they know where they're heading in terms of their therapy, their day-to-day life. It's a management tool, so they're not just putting out fires, but actually managing their cases.
From the management standpoint, where does safety enter into this picture? Because you could have people injured at work, you could have people injured at home, or injured with their automobiles. So we have possibly several different types of reasons why people are in need of life care planning, and I'm just curious where this concept of safety enters into the picture.
Well, I'll give you a couple examples. One would be, for instance, let's just say an older person, if let's just say they're limited to being in the bed a great deal, and they develop a decubitus. Well, decubitus is an ulcer that's on the outside of the skin, and it's a very expensive procedure to get rid of that ulcer, and it would be more cost effective and as far as safety goes, to have some type of aid working with that individual and turning them so often so that they're not developing this particular type of ulcer.
I see.
Many times the family takes on this job of taking care of mom and pop, and they after a period of time they sometimes get lax. They just become a little bit overwhelmed by a lot of the things that are demanded on them.
It's a brave effort, but sometimes it's something that really needs to be considered in a different way than by the family.
Right. Another example might be, say, a closed head injury. This is where an individual their brains have been basically shooken in their skull, and it becomes bruised, and as a result of it, they may walk and talk and be able to do many tasks, but they have cognitive deficits. They can't remember things, and they do things differently. And so it's important that a cognitive maybe training program set up so that they can learn to take care of themselves more effectively, so that they are able to do many of the, what I call being more self-sufficient.
I see. I read one of your articles in the Lawyers Weekly magazine, and it talks about this blueprint and also makes reference to a training program at the University of Florida. Is that the only place where this certified course is given right now?
Well, presently, the University of Florida and the Rehab Training Institute, they've combined. They are the only institution in North America that's providing that service. Actually, I think in the whole world right now.
I see. How, with that limited proviso of the education, how can other practitioners or claims adjusters, if you will, get up to speed about life care planning and this intelligent management roadmap of planning lifestyles?
Are you asking how they can become more knowledgeable about it?
Yes.
Well, there's a couple of journals out there. The one's called Case Manager. They talk about it sometimes, at least for professionals. For adjusters, there is a newsletter that's put out, I think, once a month. It's called Life Care Plan Insight, and it's for professionals. And I would think a claims adjuster could read it, just become more aware of what to look. Look forward towards what types of things look in a life care plan, what kind of problems there are, what's the trends in life care planning.
Suppose among our viewers out there, there's a family that has just taken on this brave and large responsibility of taking care of mom and pop, or just mom or dad, and all of a sudden they're finding that this is more of a responsibility and a duty than they feel that they are able to handle. Is there something that they can read, or should they call somebody like you if they want to talk about what they think, their problems are? Because I'm sure there must be some feelings of guilt by a family that, no nursing home for my mom or dad, we're going to do it all the way or not at all. And then they find it's a real, perhaps more than a labor of love. And they probably need guidance.
Right. Well, I think an important thing is possibly putting the money into a trust with a bank, developing a relationship with the bank so that they're investing the money while it's sitting there and getting the best interest rate. And then once they've established that, is obtain a life care planner to put their minds at ease so they can see where mom or papa or father's going, or maybe their son, or maybe their spouse, who's disabled. So they have a working plan of all the therapies, the doctors they've got to see, how frequently they've got to be seen, what types of equipment that needs to be maybe maintained or purchased on a regular basis, what types of other tools, what types of medications need to be taken, what kind of modifications need to be made to the house.
Okay, now how can they locate a life care planner? Is that a section in the Yellow Pages they can go to?
Well, that's a pretty obscure field, and there's only a couple places. There's an association, a national association called the National Association of Disability Evaluators, and another, I think the Lawyers Weekly puts out a directory. That's a possibility. Other than that, it's finding out if looking in the Yellow Pages and finding out if a rehabilitation person is certified in doing life care plans, and that's just by asking for their certification number.
Okay, so the Lawyers Weekly, I guess, is the Michigan Lawyers Weekly, which is probably in Lansing, and so anybody can just call information there and get that number.
Correct.
Okay, and if they also have questions, I'm sure they can call your phone number and get the same good assistance that you've been generous to give us here for our viewers on the cable program. What more about this blueprint? It seems like it's a very intelligent plan rather than some older historic methods that used to be used about planning in advance, or when an attorney has to make some prognostications about somebody's future development. This sounds like it's almost a scientific care plan for people. Is that really what it represents?
Yeah, you're right, and I think what you're getting at is that in the past, the attorneys or life care plans, or actually they weren't even called back then. It was just a way of obtaining money. Let's just say in a settlement, you're in a bad auto accident or you're injured at work somehow, and you want to make a settlement. Well, that money was determined by an adjuster who would use maybe the same type of case all the time, and and each case is different, and each case has different needs, and I think that's what you're getting at.
Yes. Yeah, so you can't really broad brush and say, well, every case of closed head injury is the same, so I'll treat it the same way. People have different abilities and different levels and different degrees, probably, of closed head injuries. And I would imagine that in some cases they actually get out of that, don't they, with a closed head injury, or is it something that's always permanent?
It depends on the level. I mean, that's just one example. I mean,
Sure.
there's many of the, when you're talking about life care plans, I would say the majority of the time the people that are injured or that require a life care plan, that means that they've got significant problems, and there's many different types of treatment programs and medications and physicians that need to be seen on a regular basis. It's possible where an individual may improve to the point to be a little bit more self-sufficient.
Okay.
But I would think that the majority of the time is to help that person live a quality life.
I see. I know that in some other areas they use traits, like in transferable skills. There are certain numbers of traits. I think when you and I were in a previous program, there was discussion about 24 traits. Is there a certification to this life care planning, or is there a common denominator that is used to develop the proper level of life care plan for an individual?
Well, yeah, the certification is the National Association of Disability Evaluators. You take an exam. You have to have a minimum of 120 hours of postgraduate credit in life care planning before you can even take the test. And it's a significant investment on the professional that's involved in it.
So that if somebody is approached on this concept and says, you need a life care plan assessment, then I guess for our viewers they can say, well, what does that mean? What are my options, and what are your qualifications to do that? I mean, in what fashion are you doing this? According to this certified agency, or just your own whim?
Right, and that's important because I've seen some life care, well, they're supposedly called life care plans, when they were very limited in explaining to the rehab team as to what the heck they were trying to accomplish. And it has to be very clear. There should be everyone that's working on the case needs to understand what's expected of them, who's going to be involved, how much it's going to cost, when it's going to happen. And these are the important factors some of the important factors of a life care plan.
When dealing with the family, what are some of the problems that you run into in establishing a life care plan?
Well, depending upon the case, like with a child, it would be overly protective parents. They want to shelter the child from all the terrible things that happen out there in the schools, and they don't want to integrate them. And it's very important that that disabled child develop friendships within the community so that they're growing up with other children, because those children might be their future boss. So it's important that that happens. And it's the family wants to maybe keep them from being hurt, but what they're really doing is making them more vulnerable in the later years.
Probably the school management also is trained to recognize some of this too, so it may not be something that they have to advise the school of. I would imagine that teachers are sensitive to some of these things.
Well, it depends. There are school systems that are being sued, and depending upon what school system you're dealing with, and the parents sometimes have to fight for their rights, and sometimes they'll hire those people, representatives from the Cerebral Palsy Center in Southfield, that they actually have designated individuals that go and help fight for families to get the types of services they're supposed to get from the school system. So it's not always that easy to get.
Okay, so if a family gets into this kind of situation, we'll cover this more when we take after our break. Let's take a short break now, and we'll be right back with more of Safety Matters.
What are you doing?
I'm waiting for my sister Mary. We're going to play.
Do you and your sister play a lot?
We didn't used to. She didn't like being around me. She was very unhappy.
Oh, what changed her?
Some nice people helped her to like herself again. And now she even likes me again. Do you know something?
What's that?
I think she always liked me. She just forgot how much.
Ah, I think you're right.
Hello, I'm Michigan Secretary of State Candace Miller. Being stranded on the highway is a motorist's worst reality, but by following a few simple safety tips, you can stay safe. In case of an emergency, pull off the road. Signal for help using flashers or a sign in the rear window. Stay with your car. Call for help on a cellular phone. Accept help from only uniformed officers. To help you stay safe, Michigan Secretary of State branch offices have free safety information for you. I urge you to get this information and stay put and stay safe.
We're back with Ron Smolarski about considerations for life care planning and lifestyle safety. And Ron, before our break, we got into this concept of how parents can recognize when a school system is possibly making a mistake and the family needs to fight for certain considerations. And you suggested the Cerebral Palsy Institute in Southfield. Can parents go to them for some help when they have a gut feeling that something's gone wrong in this communication process?
Yeah, they're one organization. There's another one called ARC, these organizations are out there to help parents and families with their children or grown-up adults.
So you shouldn't simply accept the word of the school and say, we can't do anything. If you have a gut feeling that they should be doing something as a school system, and that's what you're paying your taxes for, then you should consult these other agencies.
Right. Now there comes to a point, I mean, sometimes the school system just doesn't have the money. They're supposed to provide, for instance, occupational therapy, but I know certain school systems just do not have the money, and they're lucky to do it once a week, and they're supposed to be doing it as many times as that student needs it. There are things, for instance, like housing. Many people always thought that like a challenged person needs to be put into a institution. Well, many people are being put in their own homes, and they're able to function quite effectively. And there's ways of doing that. So there's a lot of things out there that that families need to, of course, when you get a life care planner, that's part of their job to get the people that are connected to have that sort of thing happen, to make sure it happens. So for instance, if the assessment of the life care plan sees that maybe the school isn't providing certain things, they may provide provide in the life care plan that an advocate be initiated to request certain types of services, or well, at least for children, and there's other things that life care plan can do. But
I think that's a very good consideration, because oftentimes parents might be made to feel like, listen, we're the school and we're telling you, what this is, and you shouldn't have any rebuttals. So the parents really have an option here for rebuttal through somebody like an advocate that might be a life care planning savvy organization like the Cerebral Palsy Institution. You also mentioned ARC. What's the connotation? Do you know where they might be located?
I'm sorry. In the past, you were dealing with people that were retarded, it's called challenged people, and these are people that there's different levels of this condition, and they are quite competent in working in all sorts of fields of work, and there's different types of services that can be requested, and it's knowing where to go and what you can obtain from these different facilities throughout the metropolitan Detroit area.
Okay. What are the fiduciary problems, and maybe we can define that for our viewers too, but the fiduciary problems that occur with bank people and trusts, if any?
Well, actually it's a combination of attorneys, banks, and people, and it's like, for instance, when a person is disabled from, say, an auto accident, let's just say that they become catastrophically injured, and the attorney says, look it, we can settle this case for $2 million. And geez, this family's never seen $1 million in all their life. You know, they lived from paycheck to paycheck. Well, what they didn't realize is they didn't do a life care plan. It was maybe some adjuster that says, hey, I'll give you $2 million if you just say goodbye and leave us alone.
I see.
Well, without doing a correct assessment, like for instance, I did an assessment on a person that was a quadriplegic, and it took $8.2 million to provide all the services for this individual for the rest of their life. Well, $2 million isn't going to make it. Now, what would be useful if the family or the disabled person, if they're able on their own, would make a connection with, say, a bank that has a trust office, and to have the trust officer work with the family and the attorney, so that when the attorney's coming up and making a settlement package, the bank could see if they can make up any difference that's between the adjuster and the attorney by their investments that they can make. And it's a lot better if the person gets that lump sum money and they have it all, because if they take what's called a structured settlement, the insurance company still has all the money. All they're doing is they're giving it at a specific interest rate. No matter what happens to inflation, they're still getting the same amount of money every week, or however the payment schedule is set up. So it's more to their benefit to put it into a trust and have the trust invest that money into, geez, at the minimum they can put it in 12% mutual funds, but they can do some conservative investments and do some other types of investment, blue chip stock type investments possibly. I don't know what type of investment they would do, but they would be able to recoup some of the damages that possibly the attorney was not able to obtain.
So really the attorney is a great person here to become an advocate for the person as a maybe an interim person between the claims adjuster and the bank, setting up an intelligent kind of a trust system.
Yeah, the good attorneys, that's what they do. They set up a trust, and they really can't force a person to do it, but I'll tell you, the good ones, they'll say, hey, look, if I'm going to help you win this case, this is what needs to be done, because this is going to provide you with enough money that you're going to need for the rest of your life.
Sure. Now that almost sounds too like you're suggesting that the person through the attorney get the money in lieu of accepting a structured settlement.
Well, I think every case has to be looked at independently, but in the majority, you can set up structured settlements within a bank, but I think the important thing is that the person has the money.
Yes.
They can invest it, and they can be changing different investment packages,
right.
Whereas if they just get into an annuity, they're stuck with this low interest rate.
So from the standpoint of controlling the controllable, it's better if the person has the control and the money rather than somebody other than the person.
Right, but besides that, they don't even know if that insurance company could go out of business, like that one company out in California recently that went out of business.
That's a good point.
And they would be out. This way they have the money.
Okay, so for the person to take control is a key issue then, and then also to work through an attorney as an advocate on their behalf for what this life care plan is, because the $2 million may not be adequate, and through a life care plan assessment it may mean, like the case you already mentioned,
right.
$8.2 million.
Unfortunately, many of these people make settlements and the life care plan isn't done, so they're not even aware of how much money they really are going to need. But when someone throws out a large figure like $1 million, well, geez, that sounds more than enough.
Sure.
But when you start adding up all the different items, and I've got, like, one of my cases is about 56 pages long. So you can, and on each 56 page, each one of those pages, there's about 10 items. So you can imagine, and the cost is just astronomical, especially on catastrophic cases.
Sure. Is there any type of a sophisticated computerized program that is used as a part of this long-term or planning assessment?
Well, I use a couple programs. I use there's a one that's made out of in Louisiana. I use LPC program, it's called.
But these are approved too, right, by those?
Oh, yeah. Well, actually, the person that produces that particular software is one of the instructors. I noticed just recently as part of the training program to the University of Florida. So he's training people how to use that particular equipment to be more effective in doing their life care planning.
I see. So to the people that need to rely on life care planning, there's this kind of intelligent software available so that if somebody gives our viewers some excuse and says, gee, I don't know what you mean by life care plan, you know, then our viewers ought to take that as a sign that that person is not very astute about his own area of expertise.
Yes.
Okay. How about long-term care or nursing type facilities? Where does this enter into their picture?
Well, that's become a big issue with them, because what happens is that there might be a trust that's set up, and the institution wants to make sure there's enough money to provide for all the services 10, 20 years from now. They don't want to be the person that's going to be telling the family like 10 years from now that, hey, we don't have any more money for your father or your son. They want to be able to know up front and say, look, you have enough money to this year, like say 2010, to provide for all the needed services that your son needs or your wife needs. We want to make you aware of that, because at that point in time you have to have some other facility to take care of it, because we require this up front to be before we'll take your spouse or your child.
I see. That also means that they must be savvy about what that implies in terms of life care planning and a long-term assessment, and really the safety of the person that we're involved with here.
Right. I mean, that's the whole idea. They want to know that all the therapies, the evaluations that are needed for this individual have been evaluated and presented to the family, and that the family realizes the costs that will incur as a result of all this, and so they can prepare for it, so the person's not going to be left down the road without a sufficient type of therapy or evaluation that's necessary to function as a human being.
Okay, now from the standpoint of a treating physician, we're kind of running a little bit short on time, but can you just address that briefly?
Well, what's important to the physician is that the physicians are losing power through all these new groupings of healthcare organizations, and the life care planning puts the power back in his hands, because what I do is I get all the therapists, all the doctors that are involved in the case to come to conclusions. What are the needs? The life care plan is generated by needs, not by costs. If you're only looking at costs, that means you're going to get the cheapest item. And
okay.
So that's very important.
Okay, Ron Smolarski, again, if our viewers have any questions, they can always call you, and I think that we've given them some good things to think about, because life care planning is a process that we hope benefits people in safety. Thanks again for watching. Let us know what you think, any suggestions for new topics. We'll see you again on Safety Matters, and thanks again, and be safe.